Have you ever wondered why certain women refuse to entertain people who drain, confuse, or quietly undermine them? Why do some women seem to sense danger in others long before anything obvious happens on the surface? What if the very people you feel subtly uneasy around are actually the exact archetypes your intuition is warning you to avoid? Welcome to time-tested advice, where ancient philosophy meets the modern world. I'm your host, Alfred. Let's get started. The mind that guards its inner gate shapes its own kingdom. Today, we travel through the interior world of the Sigma female. She is a rare blueprint, a woman who moves from internal direction rather than external noise. Our focus is 11 types of people. A Sigma female will always say no. To the names you are about to hear are unconventional, and the explanations are crafted to reveal deeper social patterns that most ignore. You are here because you value understanding that sharpens your insight. 1. The echo chain personality. The echo chain personality is not simply someone who lacks confidence. It is a specific behavioral pattern built from years of outsourcing identity. These individuals operate like a network of borrowed voices. Their opinions are recycled, their beliefs are copied, and their sense of self shifts depending on who stands closest to them. A Sigma female recognizes this instantly because she lives from internal clarity. She does not bend her values to suit the room, so she notices when others do. The echo chain personality relies on mimicry as survival. They observe what others admire, then adopt it as their own. They pick up expressions, interests, and convictions the same way someone collects souvenirs. A Sigma female sees that nothing in them is rooted. They speak of passion, but their passion changes with every new influence. They discuss principles, yet those principles rearrange the moment they face friction. The Sigma does not judge this harshly, but she understands the danger behind it. Trust requires consistency. Without an internal center, the echo chain cannot offer loyalty. They will mirror her strength at first, copying her calm, her independence, her grounded presence. But when conflict appears, or when a louder influence enters their life, they shift again. To a Stigma, this is instability disguised as adaptation. She does not feel safe placing emotional, professional, or personal investment in someone who has never examined their own identity. The echo chain. Personality often depends heavily on external validation. They rely on praise to feel anchored. They wait for someone else to tell them who they are. This creates tension when they are around a Sigma female because she does not feed that dependency. She expects authenticity, not performative confidence. She expects people to speak from conviction, not imitation. This unmet need eventually turns into resentment from the echo chain, who feels invisible to her because she does not reinforce their masks. Another issue the Sigma notices is that the echo chain collapses under pressure. When a situation demands honesty, they hesitate. When a moment moral backbone, they fold. When someone pushes them to choose sides, they choose whichever side is most convenient. The Sigma cannot build stable relationships with people who view truth as flexible. Her world requires strength of character and reliability. She expects people to stand, even when standing is difficult. The echo chain personality also introduces unpredictability. Their shifting identity means their behavior is inconsistent. One week, they pursue self-improvement. The next, they adopt a self-sabotaging belief they borrowed from someone else. They may agree with the Stigma in private, then echo a contradictory perspective with someone else. This creates confusion and weakens the sense of alignment that the Stigma relies on, a Sigma. Male is not unkind toward people like this. She simply values clarity over closeness. She values alignment over approval. She says no to the echo chain because she understands a simple truth. You cannot walk with someone who does not know where they stand. You cannot build trust with someone who does not trust their own voice. You cannot share depth with someone who has never cultivated their own identity. Her no is not rejection of the person. It is rejection of instability. She is a woman who honors inner structure. She seeks people with self-knowledge, self-respect, and internal direction. Anything less disrupts the integrity she protects. 2. The storm merchant. The storm merchant is the embodiment of emotional turbulence. They turn ordinary moments into dramatic scenes and peaceful environments into battlegrounds. The Sigma female sees through the surface immediately. She recognizes that. Chaos is not an accident for these people. It is a pattern. It is a coping mechanism. It is their way of feeling significant in a world they cannot regulate. Storm merchants live in a constant state of high emotional charge. They jump from conflict to conflict, often creating new problems before resolving old ones. Their conversations are filled with intensity, urgency, and emotional weight. They blur the line between connection and crisis, making relationships feel like constant rescue missions. A Sigma female notices that they are most comfortable when something is going wrong. Quiet moments make them restless because quiet moments force reflection. A storm merchant often enters the life of a stable person because stability gives them an anchor. They attach themselves to grounded individuals who can absorb their emotional weather. At first, the Sigma female may seem like the perfect anchor to them. She's calm, introspective, rational, and steady, but the Sigma quickly recognizes the pattern. Every interaction becomes heavy. Every conversation becomes an emergency. Every disagreement becomes a personal attack. She sees how storm merchants mistake intensity for intimacy. The more chaotic the connection feels, the more meaningful they believe it is. This is incompatible with the Sigma female who values peace as a strategic priority. She does not equate emotional storms with closeness. She equates calm with safety, direction, and strength. Storm merchants often struggle with emotional boundaries. They overshare quickly, bringing deeply personal stories into early conversations. They attempt to pull others into their inner chaos, hoping that shared intensity will create loyalty. A Sigma female sees this as an emotional trap. She knows that relationships built on crisis cannot sustain long-term trust. The storm merchant's presence drains energy. They require constant reassurance, constant attention, and constant involvement. They're cycles of emotional upheaval. When the Sigma steps back to recharge or focus on her own goals, the storm merchant interprets this as abandonment. They may lash out, create new drama, or accuse her of being cold, but she is not cold. She is preserving her inner landscape. The storm merchant often has a fragmented relationship with accountability. Their actions are justified by their emotions. Their mistakes are explained away with dramatic narratives. They shift blame, reframe events, or reshape the truth to avoid discomfort. The Sigma female sees this as a fundamental threat to healthy interaction. She values responsibility. She values emotional maturity. She values reality over performance. Another challenge is that storm merchants disrupt environments. They bring chaos into group settings, workplaces, friendships, and families. The Sigma female protects not only her inner world, but also the environments that sustain her. She cannot allow someone who creates instability to occupy space in her life. She says no, not out of rejection, but out of protection. She protects her time, her peace, her mental clarity, and her future. She knows that emotional storms eventually destroy the structures around them. She chooses to walk away before the damage begins. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, say hello, and consider subscribing to our channel. And if you'd like to support our channel further, become a member by clicking the Join button below 3, the Velvet Hunter. The Velvet Hunter is one of the most deceptive personality types the Sigma female encounters. They hide their intentions behind warmth, softness, and carefully chosen gestures that make them appear harmless. Unlike overt manipulators who rely on obvious tactics, the Velvet Hunter operates through emotional subtlety. Everything they do is cushioned in gentleness. Everything they say is delivered with a tone that seems nurturing. But beneath this velvety surface lies a calculated need for influence and control. A Sigma female recognizes early signs the average person overlooks. She observes patterns in timing, tone shifts, and the precision of the Velvet Hunter's actions. These individuals do not simply compliment, they target insecurities. They do not simply ask questions, they probe for emotional entry points. They do not simply offer support, they build dependence. The Sigma sees that none of this is random, it is strategic positioning disguised as affection. Velvet Hunters thrive in environments where people are seeking. They sense emotional hunger and move toward it. They offer comfort, not because they care, but because comfort increases their power. They create situations where others begin to rely on them for guidance, validation, or emotional grounding. But a Sigma female does not rely on anyone for emotional anchoring. She creates her own stability, which makes her resistant to these tactics. This resistance is exactly what draws the Velvet Hunter in. They find the Sigma female fascinating because she is hard to influence. They try to infiltrate her world through compliments, loyalty displays, or gentle empathy. But the Sigma notices something unusual. The Velvet Hunter pays attention to details that matter to control, not connection. They remember vulnerabilities. They track emotional patterns. They store information for later use. A Sigma female understands the danger behind this behavior. She sees that Velvet Hunters rarely reveal their true intentions. They avoid confrontation, avoid transparency, and avoid accountability. They operate through suggestion rather than expression. They prefer indirect pressure instead of direct disagreement. They position themselves as indispensable through emotional leverage. One of the clearest signs the Sigma watches is how the Velvet Hunter responds to boundaries. When the Sigma female sets limits, the Velvet Hunter does not push back openly. Instead, they express mild disappointment or subtle withdrawal. It is a quiet attempt to make the Sigma feel guilty without openly challenging her. This emotional pressure may work on others, but not on her. She views guilt manipulation as a breach of trust. Another pattern she notices is the Velvet Hunter's selective honesty. They share carefully curated stories designed to gain sympathy or admiration. Their openness is not real vulnerability. It is a tool. They use personal disclosures to create connection, but these disclosures are always framed in a way that makes them appear gentle, misunderstood, or selfless. A Sigma female sees the underlying performance. Another concern is the Velvet Hunter's long-term strategy. They seek influence that grows quietly over time. They want people to look to them for advice. They want to guide decisions. They want to become the emotional compass of those. Around them, a Sigma female cannot allow anyone to occupy that position in her life. She values autonomy above all else. She refuses to let anyone guide her emotions or shape her path through subtle manipulation. When the Sigma recognizes a velvet hunter, her response is decisive but calm. She withdraws her emotional availability. She limits the information she shares. She stops giving the velvet hunter any access to vulnerability. She does not confront them directly, unless necessary. She simply denies them the foothold they seek. The velvet hunter eventually grows frustrated because their usual methods do not work. They may attempt stronger emotional pulls or more targeted sympathy tactics, but the Sigma remains steadfast. She knows that manipulation wrapped in kindness is still manipulation. She understands that false softness is often more dangerous than open hostility. Her final no to the velvet hunter is quiet, but absolute. She removes herself from the dynamic entirely, preserving her space, her clarity, and her sovereignty for the empty throne seeker. The empty throne seeker is driven by a desire for recognition without the corresponding desire for growth. They dream of being admired, respected, or influential, but they refuse to invest the effort required to earn those positions. They want the throne, but avoid the path. A Sigma female sees through this illusion from the start, because she measures people not by what they claim they are, but by what they consistently do. Empty throne seekers are often charismatic. They use big ideas and grand declarations to create the impression of potential. They describe future achievements with confidence, yet they never take the steps necessary to make those achievements real. They live in a self-constructed future built from fantasies rather than discipline. A Sigma female recognizes the emotional danger of people who romanticize effort rather than applying it. She observes how empty throne seekers shift responsibility onto circumstances, luck, or other people. When they fail to act, they create excuses that sound reasonable but lack substance. They often say they are waiting for the right moment, the right environment, or the right inspiration. The Sigma notices the pattern. She knows that people who wait for perfect conditions rarely act at all. They remain stuck in anticipation, not progress. Another red flag she notices is entitlement. Empty throne seekers believe they deserve admiration simply for existing with potential. They exaggerate their abilities. They expect support for visions they have not worked to build. They position themselves as leaders without demonstrating leadership qualities. A Sigma female respects individuals who build, not individuals who demand rewards without. Contributing. When an empty throne seeker enters her life, she examines how they respond to structure. If given opportunities for growth, they avoid them. If offered a chance to learn, they show disinterest. If challenged to develop discipline, they become defensive. Their fear of failure makes them resist any process that requires effort. They prefer the admiration that comes with imagined greatness over the work that produces real greatness. A Sigma female also pays attention to their relationship with accountability. Empty throne seekers externalize blame when something does not go their way. They claim others sabotaged them, society abandoned them, or opportunities were stolen from them. These narratives protect their self-image, but destroy their potential. A Sigma sees the danger of tolerating this mindset. It drains motivation, corrupts collaboration, and makes growth impossible. Empty throne. Seekers often try to attach themselves to capable people. They admire the Sigma female's discipline, independence, and strength. They may attempt to benefit from her momentum without contributing to it. She notices when someone gravitates toward her, not because of genuine respect, but because they see her as a vehicle for their unearned ambitions. This is where the Sigma draws a line. She will help those who help themselves, but she refuses to carry those who refuse to walk. Her world does not tolerate dead weight disguised as potential. She understands that potential without effort is a liability. Another issue she sees is emotional instability. Empty throne seekers often fluctuate between arrogance and self-pity. When they imagine success, they behave grandly. When confronted with reality, they collapse into defeatism. This inconsistency creates instability that disrupts the Sigma's structured mental space. The Sigma respects growth, discipline, and mastery. She rejects fantasy, entitlement, and laziness. She values individuals who earn their place, who build through resilience, who fail and rise again. She has no interest in people who want the outcome but reject the journey. Her no to the empty throne. Seeker is firm. She refuses to become a stepping stone in someone else's unearned narrative. She guards her path from anyone who values status more than substance. 5. The frequency breaker. The frequency breaker is a person whose presence disrupts emotional, mental, and social alignment wherever they go. They may not be intentionally harmful, but their internal imbalance radiates outward. They interrupt harmony, derail momentum, and distort the energy of any environment they enter. A Sigma female instantly senses this because she is highly sensitive to emotional resonance. She maintains her own frequency deliberately, and she identifies anyone who threatens that equilibrium. Frequency breakers often live in a state of inner conflict. Their beliefs contradict their actions, their words contradict their intentions, their behavior contradicts the energy they claim to carry. The Sigma female recognizes that this internal fragmentation spills outward. These individuals disrupt conversations with unrelated negativity, derail plans with impulsive decisions, or introduce tension into moments that were previously peaceful. One of the clearest signs of a frequency breaker is their inability to adjust to the emotional climate of a room. They impose their internal state on others. If they are frustrated, they radiate it. If they are anxious, they spread it. If they feel threatened, they destabilize those around them. A Sigma female sees this pattern quickly. She understands that frequency is contagious, and she refuses to allow someone else's unresolved issues to contaminate her inner clarity. Frequency breakers are also resistant to growth. They express desire for change, but reject the steps required to achieve it. They complain about circumstances, but avoid any action that might shift those circumstances. They insist they want better, yet their habits remain unchanged. This creates friction when interacting with a Sigma female who is oriented around self-evolution. She improves through intention and discipline, while the frequency breaker drags environments backward. Another defining trait is unpredictability. Frequency breakers are inconsistent in their emotional tone and relational behavior. They may be encouraging one moment and dismissive the next. They may support an idea enthusiastically, then sabotage it through passive negativity. Their emotional volatility makes stability impossible. The Sigma female refuses to allow unpredictable individuals to influence her direction. Her goals require consistency, and inconsistency is a threat to forward movement. Frequency breakers often interpret boundaries as rejection. When the Sigma female limits their access, they react defensively. They may accuse her of being distant, cold, or arrogant. They fail to understand that boundaries are essential for maintaining high mental clarity. They expect others to accommodate their fluctuating energy, yet they rarely adjust to the needs of others. The Sigma also notices the subtle ways frequency breakers distort communication. They may misinterpret neutral remarks as personal attacks, inject negativity into collaborative discussions, or shift conversations toward insecurity. This creates tension and reduces the emotional safety of shared spaces. The Sigma views communication as a tool for building, understanding. Frequency breakers use communication unconsciously as a vessel for their unresolved emotional static. While some people can grow out of these tendencies, the frequency breaker resists introspection. They avoid accountability because self-examination exposes the chaos they are trying to ignore. They blame circumstances, others, or the world instead of facing the root causes of their balance. The Sigma female does not judge this, but she recognizes the burden of maintaining proximity to someone who refuses self-regulation. She understands that misaligned frequencies drain focus and weaken productivity. She says no to the frequency breaker because protecting her emotional landscape is non-negotiable. Her inner world. It is carefully curated. It is a place of clarity, purpose, and peace. She cannot allow anyone with inconsistent emotional energy to interfere with that. The frequency breaker may interpret her distance as harshness, but she knows it is necessary. She cannot walk her path while adjusting constantly to someone who refuses to stabilize their own vibration. Her no is an act of self-protection, not cruelty. She continues forward, choosing relationships that support equilibrium, not disrupt it. 6. The shadow borrower. The shadow borrower is someone who constructs their identity by absorbing the traits, beliefs, and strengths of others. They do not develop a personal inner world. Instead, they borrow shadows from the people around them. They imitate mannerisms, replicate opinions, and adopt lifestyles that do not belong to them. A Sigma female notices this pattern immediately because she values authenticity above all else. She is rooted in her own identity, and she can sense when someone else is not. Shadow borrowers are difficult to detect at first because they often appear supportive, attentive, and deeply interested. They observe the Sigma female closely, absorbing her vocabulary, her emotional rhythms, her worldview, and sometimes even her ambitions. The Sigma recognizes the difference between admiration and imitation. Admiration respects. Imitation seeks occupation. The shadow borrower attempts to inhabit her identity rather than develop their own. Their behavior comes from an internal void. They lack self-awareness, self-reflection, or a clear sense of purpose. They fill this emptiness by becoming a reflection of whoever they idealize. This creates instability because their identity shifts dramatically depending on their surroundings. The Sigma female sees this as a warning sign. People who lack internal grounding cannot offer consistent loyalty, clear intention, or genuine connection. Shadow borrowers often attach themselves to strong personalities. They rely on proximity to confidence in order to feel relevant. They may praise the Sigma excessively, mirror her interests, or adopt her values without understanding them. This flattery may appear harmless, but the Sigma knows it is a precursor to dependency. When someone borrows identity instead of building one, they eventually demand emotional validation in return. Another concern is that shadow borrowers lose themselves so deeply in imitation that they become unpredictable. Their beliefs change depending on who they are around. Their goals evolve based on who inspires them at the moment. This makes them unreliable and sometimes emotionally dangerous. They may defend the stigma passionately one day, then echo criticism of her if someone else influences them differently. The Sigma female also notices that the shadow borrower struggles with boundaries. They want access to her knowledge, her emotional world, and her routines. They interpret closeness as permission to adopt more aspects of her identity. They mistake inspiration for permission. The Sigma recognizes that this merging of identities does not lead to connection, but to entanglement. She values clarity in relationships, and entanglement threatens that clarity. Shadow borrowers often create emotional tension because they feel threatened when the stigma expresses individuality. When she pulls back to recharge or focuses on her own path, they fear abandonment. They may become clingy, insecure, or overly dependent. Their fear of losing the person they are imitating drives them to tighten their emotional grip. The Sigma female sees this as a form of control disguised as vulnerability. One of the most concerning patterns she identifies is the shadow borrower's relationship with truth. Because they adapt to their environment, their honesty becomes flexible. They may tell different versions of the same story to different people. They may adjust their values to suit whoever they are trying to impress. This lack of authenticity creates instability that the Sigma refuses to tolerate. The Sigma female values individuals who know who they are. She respects people who build themselves through introspection, not replication. She understands that true connection comes from two whole identities meeting, not one identity absorbing another. For this reason, she says no to the shadow borrower, quietly but firmly. She steps back before attachment forms. She protects her inner identity from those who try to mirror it. Her no is not unkind, it is protective. She leaves the shadow borrower with an opportunity to discover who they truly are without leaning on the identity of another. 7. The silent saboteur. The silent saboteur is one of the most subtle and dangerous presences a Sigma female will ever encounter. Unlike overtly negative individuals who show their hostility openly, the silent saboteur hides their intentions behind politeness, neutrality, and carefully controlled facial expressions. They rarely attack directly. Instead, they undermine. Quietly, strategically, and in ways that are easy to overlook unless you are highly observant, a Sigma female sees what others miss. She detects tension in silence, meaning in hesitation, and intention in the smallest behavioral shift. Silent saboteurs often present themselves as calm, reasonable, or even supportive. Outwardly, they rarely express aggression. Internally, they carry envy, insecurity, or resentment toward the Sigma female's independence and strength. They cannot tolerate someone who moves without needing external validation. They cannot understand someone who is self-directed, self-assured, and self-sustained. Instead of confronting their discomfort, they express it through subtle sabotage. A Sigma female notices the early signs. The silent saboteur rarely celebrates her achievements with genuine enthusiasm. Their congratulations are faint, delayed, or delivered with a slight emotional distance. When the Sigma shares an accomplishment, the silent saboteur responds with muted acknowledgement or shifts the conversation quickly. This is not accidental. It is a quiet attempt to reduce significance. Another signal appears in group interactions. The silent saboteur may avoid speaking positively about the stigma in public settings, even if they act friendly in private. They may withhold support during important discussions, fail to defend her when others misunderstand her, or subtly shift group perception by adding small doubts or questions. They never appear hostile. Their influence works through nuance, not confrontation. Passive resistance is another hallmark. When the Sigma female takes initiative on a project, goal, or idea, the silent saboteur offers minimal help. They delay responses. They withhold useful information. They pretend not to understand instructions. They weaken momentum without ever openly refusing support. To those who are unaware, it looks like simple miscommunication. To the Sigma, it is intentional resistance. Silent saboteurs also use emotional camouflage. They hide behind language that sounds neutral but carries quiet hostility. They say things like, "Are you sure?" or "That might be too much for you," or "I just do not want you to get disappointed." These statements appear caring, but they are designed to seed doubt, slow confidence, and weaken progress. The Sigma recognizes that discouragement disguised as protection is still discouragement. Another pattern is selective invisibility. The silent saboteur disappears during moments of challenge, but reappears during moments of vulnerability. When the Sigma is succeeding, they distance themselves out of envy. When the Sigma is struggling, they return because her moments of weakness make them feel stronger. This imbalance reveals their emotional motives. Silent saboteurs are particularly threatened by the Sigma female's independence. They cannot manipulate her through approval, emotional pressure, or social influence because they cannot control her directly. They resort to subtle undermining. They aim to unsettle her confidence without exposing their intentions. But the stigma is perceptive. She pays attention not to words, but to patterns. She watches consistency, not performance. When the Sigma identifies a silent saboteur, her response is not dramatic. She does not confront or expose them. Instead, she withdraws her trust. She limits the information she shares. She stops relying on them for collaboration or emotional connection. She creates distance that is calm, deliberate, and protective. The silent saboteur eventually senses this shift and may attempt to re-establish closeness. They may increase compliments, display loyalty, or offer sudden support, but the stigma remains steady. She does not return trust once it has been broken through subtle hostility. She understands that. Sabotage, even in silence, is still sabotage. Her no is rooted in preservation. She refuses to allow hidden resentment to grow near her. She walks away quietly, leaving the silent saboteur to confront their own internal conflict without her energy to feed on. 8. The boundary erosionist. The boundary erosionist is a person who challenges limits not through aggression, but through gradual persistence. They do not break boundaries, they soften them. They do not confront rules, they bend them. Their behavior appears harmless on the surface, but it is designed to test how much access they can gain. A Sigma female recognizes this pattern quickly because boundaries to her are not optional. They are the architecture of her peace, productivity, and emotional stability. Boundary erosionists often begin with small requests, a minor favor, a slight exception, a quick adjustment. They frame their asks as harmless, and often the requests are small enough that most people do not notice the progression, but the Sigma pays attention. She remembers every shift in dynamic, every subtle push, every small attempt to gain more of her time, energy, or emotional space. The erosionist operates through subtle entitlement. They believe they deserve more access than they have earned. They interpret kindness as permission. They interpret availability as obligation. They become bolder with every allowance, stretching the boundary further with each interaction. It may begin with simple requests, but gradually evolves into demands that infringe on her autonomy. The Sigma female observes how erosionists respond to the word no. This is one of the clearest indicators of their true nature. Healthy individuals accept boundaries with respect. Erosionists respond with confusion, disappointment, or passive resistance. They may claim to misunderstand the boundary, question its necessity, or attempt to renegotiate it. Their goal is not to disregard the Sigma's limits openly, but to shift those limits slowly until they get what they want. Another pattern she notices is emotional manipulation. Erosionists often use subtle guilt to gain compliance. They may say things like, "I thought we were closer than that," or "It is not a big deal," or "You never have time anymore." These statements are crafted to pressure the Sigma into giving more access than she initially intended, but guilt-based intrusion is still intrusion, and the Sigma recognizes this immediately. Boundary erosionists also struggle with independence. They seek connection not through mutual respect, but through increasing reliance. They may expect the Sigma to provide emotional comfort, decision-making support, or consistent availability. They try to integrate themselves deeply into her routines, believing that familiarity will make boundaries easier to bypass. The Sigma sees the attempt for what it is, a strategy to secure space that does not belong to them. One of the most concerning aspects of the erosionist is their long-term pattern. As they gain more access, they begin to claim more authority. They may start offering unsolicited advice, questioning the Sigma's decisions, or implying that her boundaries are unnecessary. This incremental intrusion can eventually reshape the relationship dynamic entirely. The Sigma understands the risk. Allowing this behavior would compromise her autonomy. When the Sigma enforces a boundary, the erosionist may become emotionally reactive. They may withdraw affection, express disappointment, or play the victim role. Their emotional responses are designed to make the Sigma question her firmness, but she does not question it. She knows that boundaries protect her from emotional exhaustion and relational imbalance. The Sigma's response to a boundary erosionist is precise. She states her limits clearly, does not justify them excessively, and maintains them without wavering. This consistency reveals the erosionist's true intentions. Some back away once they realize the Sigma cannot be manipulated. Others push harder before giving up. Either way, the Sigma remains unmoved. Ultimately, she says no, because erosion is a slow form of theft. It takes time, energy, and sovereignty. She refuses to allow anyone to wear down the structure she worked hard to build. She values relationships that honor mutual respect, not ones that challenge her autonomy. She steps away when necessary, choosing preservation over accommodation. Her boundaries remain intact, and her clarity remains unshaken. 9. The missionless wanderer. The missionless wanderer is not simply someone searching for direction. Many people lack clarity at certain stages of life, and that is normal. The missionless wanderer is different. They do not merely lack a mission, they reject the idea of having one. They move through life without curiosity, without internal drive, and without any desire to understand themselves. This absence of intention creates an emotional gravity that pulls down everything around them. A Sigma female detects this immediately because she lives with purpose and she guards her direction with care. Missionless wanderers do not drift because they are lost. They drift because they avoid self-discovery. Introspection feels uncomfortable to them, and growth feels inconvenient. They hide behind distractions, shallow routines, and temporary pleasures to avoid confronting the emptiness within. The Sigma female sees the difference between someone on a journey and someone avoiding one. She respects seekers, but she distances herself from avoiders. One of the first signs she notices is their relationship with time. Missionless wanderers treat time casually as if it were an endless resource. They waste hours, days, even years without reflection or urgency. They have no long-term vision, no personal evolution, and no inner compass. The Sigma female, who values structure and progress, sees this as a threat to her own growth. She cannot surround herself with people who do not understand the importance of direction. Another pattern she identifies is emotional stagnation. Missionless wanderers rarely challenge themselves. They avoid discomfort. They resist change. They repeat the same unproductive behaviors without questioning why. Their lives become a cycle of passive existence rather than active creation. When the Sigma interacts with them, she feels the weight of this stagnation. She senses how their lack of purpose could silently erode her own momentum. Missionless wanderers also struggle to support others meaningfully because they lack clarity. They cannot provide meaningful guidance, perspective, or inspiration. Conversations with them feel repetitive, shallow, or unfocused. They offer reactions instead of insight. They listen, but they do not understand deeply. The Sigma notices how little reciprocity exists in these interactions. She gives depth, but receives little back. This imbalance drains her energy. A further concern is their relationship with responsibility. Missionless wanderers often avoid accountability for their situation. They blame circumstances, luck, or other people for their lack of movement. Instead of examining their patterns, they adopt a passive outlook that frames life as something that happens to them. The Sigma female sees this as a dangerous mindset. She believes in personal responsibility, self-direction, and conscious growth. People who abandon responsibility create instability for anyone connected to them. Missionless wanderers may initially be drawn to the Sigma because her direction gives them a temporary sense of meaning. They may cling to her clarity, hoping her purpose will compensate for their lack of it. They may rely on her for guidance, stability, or emotional grounding. But the Sigma knows this dynamic is unsustainable. She understands that carrying someone who refuses to walk is not compassion. It is self-destruction. Another challenge appears when the Sigma tries to move forward with her goals. Missionless wanderers feel threatened by her ambition because it highlights their lack of it. Instead of being inspired, they may minimize her efforts, subtly mock her discipline, or question her decisions. Their behavior. She is not rooted in malice, but in discomfort. Her growth exposes their stagnation. The Sigma does not resent them for this. She simply refuses to slow down to match a pace defined by avoidance. Her life is built on intention, effort, and growth. She cannot share her path with someone who rejects these principles. When the Sigma says no to the missionless wanderer, it is not because she lacks empathy. It is because she values momentum. She values alignment. She values evolution. She knows she cannot carry someone who refuses to awaken. She chooses relationships that elevate her trajectory, not ones that anchor her to stillness. Her no is an act of loyalty to her future. 10. The disguised puppeteer. The disguised puppeteer is a person who appears collaborative, supportive, and socially skilled, yet quietly seeks to script the choices of those around them. They do not issue commands openly. Instead, they weave suggestions, favors, and subtle obligations into every interaction, until others begin adjusting their lives around them. A Sigma female notices how often these individuals position themselves at the center of plans, decisions, and group dynamics. They offer help that comes with invisible strings. They introduce people, share opportunities, or provide guidance, but each gesture is designed to increase their leverage. The Sigma observes the way they phrase things, how they imply what others should do without taking responsibility for saying it directly. She recognizes that the disguised puppeteer is not motivated by mutual growth, but by the comfort of knowing they can influence outcomes from the background. This is unacceptable to her. She values autonomy more than convenience, and she will not allow anyone to build unspoken debts in her life. When she senses that someone's support is a strategy for control rather than genuine care, she quietly withdraws from the arrangement, refusing to let her path be redirected by unseen hands. 11. The hollow spotlight chaser. The hollow spotlight chaser is driven by visibility rather than substance. They move toward whatever or whoever increases their exposure, even if it means abandoning values, loyalty, or depth along the way. A Sigma female quickly notices that their enthusiasm spikes when an audience is present and fades when real work, quiet commitment, or private integrity are required. Spotlight chasers are drawn to the Sigma because her presence carries weight. Being near her makes them feel more credible, more powerful, more seen. They may invite her into public projects, social circles, or visible collaborations, not out of true respect, but because her reputation amplifies theirs. The Sigma watches how they treat people when no one is watching, how quickly they distance themselves from those who cannot boost their image, and how often their choices prioritize appearance over authenticity. She understands that aligning with someone whose identity depends on external applause will always come at the cost of inner truth. For that reason, she steps back. She refuses to share her path with anyone who would trade integrity for attention or who would drag her into performative spaces that suffocate the depth she protects. You have now walked through the 11 archetypes a Sigma female will always reject. Each category reflects a deeper principle of self-protection. The Sigma female does not guard her energy out of fear. She guards it because she understands that inner order creates outer freedom. She chooses her company with precision because she knows that the wrong presence can alter the direction of an entire life. Walk forward with deliberate steps. Protect your inner architecture and surround yourself only with those who strengthen your frequency. Stay sharp, stay aware, and keep your path aligned with purpose. At the heart of all of this is a single truth. The way you choose your company is the way you choose your future. When you honor your boundaries, your mission, and your inner clarity, you build a life that cannot be quietly rewritten by anyone else. Let these archetypes sharpen your discernment so that your path remains aligned with who you truly are, not who others want you to be. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'm your host, Alfred, and I read every comment.